he changes the name to the Gulf of America, whether they like it or not, them not calling it that, they are based out of the U.S. I get that they're an international organization. It's simply they're not reporting on the truth. So now if you're the president, you can argue they're not reporting on the truth.
But Emily, wouldn't you agree that the truth is also that the rest of the world calls it the Gulf of Mexico?
Technically, every other country would change the name of it too in their own country, then the journalists should comply with whatever their country wants to call it.
Emily, wouldn't you agree that the truth is also that every other country in the world calls it the Gulf of Mexico?
That's fine, but Donald Trump put an executive order to change it.
So which truth do you care about?
I care about the American truth.
Okay, so let's just be clear about it. You only care about the version of truth that Donald Trump says.
I believe
this feels like a really weird hill to die on and something to get quite hysterical over. It feels like it's actually ridiculous.
It is weird.
The administration that campaigns on free speech banned the world's largest news organization from the Oval Office for refusing to rename a body of water that no other country on earth recognizes by its new name. The people defending it on this panel couldn't explain why without contradicting themselves. Welcome to the debate, Chaz. Same panel, fresh angle. Because this story keeps revealing what happens when power decides compliance matters more than truth. Let's get into it.
Over the AP's refusal to adopt Trump's preferred name for the Gulf of Mexico.
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is.
Says the person who talked about $50 billion worth of condoms in Gaza, but that is neither here nor there. Brian Stelter is with us, also with us. This is putting aside her points about lies being told in the briefing room.
Right.
There's some really interesting questions happening here about whether the White House can compel news organizations to talk about things in a particular way.
This is a power play, plain and simple. The president wants people to obey. He wants people to use the words he chooses. He wants people to fall in line, and if they don't, they lose their access. They're not allowed to be in the company of the president. Notably, in the last 2 days, when the AP reporters have been blocked, in one case, I'm told, physically blocked from entering the Oval Office, the photographer was still allowed in, the AP photographer, right? Because the president still wants his photo taken. He wants the pictures, but not the words. This is a First Amendment violation, and I expect in the next few days, the AP will file suit. And they have a very strong case in court. This is yet another example where the courts will be the recourse for presidential action.
Brian, what are the other media outlets doing?
Right now, they're still showing up, they're still asking questions, but that's right, the Correspondents Association has condemned this and called it unacceptable. I think you're suggesting maybe reporters should, what, skip the briefing?
Should band together, because, I mean, listen, if the bully manages to bully one, he's not going to stop at one.
I don't think this is as emotional as we're making it out to be. You know, take away the hysteria for a moment. First off, Trump doesn't need
Who's
AP
being
to
hysterical?
Both of you. Trump doesn't need, first of all, AP
You
to
obviously
take
don't know what a
photographs.
hysterical and a Navarro is
I
like.
just believe it comes down to compliance.
That's true,
Trump put out an executive order. There was an executive order. He changed the name legally to Gulf of America. They're United States-based. I know they're international as well, but right now they're covering U.S. politics. So if he makes an executive order, they should respect that. And if they don't, being there is not a right, it's a privilege.
So I'm going to add in here, though, this has been called the Gulf of Mexico for 400 years. Every other nation calls it the Gulf of Mexico. So just because Trump claims that we need to...
States.
Okay, but doesn't this feel like a really weird, like, wokeism thing on the right? Like, it feels like the right's version of, like, Latinx or, like, birthing person. It just feels like a really weird hill to die on.
Nope. Let's focus on what the AP ban actually reveals about the administration's theory of press freedom, because that theory is worth examining carefully. The White House position is that because Trump signed an executive order renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, U.S.-based news organizations are obligated to use that name. Failure to comply constitutes lying, and lying gets you removed from the briefing room. That logic has a problem so fundamental it should have ended the conversation immediately. An executive order carries authority within the borders of the United States. It does not rewrite the cartographic conventions of the international community. The Gulf of Mexico shares its coastline with Mexico and Cuba. It is named by global geographic bodies whose authority extends beyond any single nation's presidential signature. The AP is an international organization serving readers in dozens of countries where the body of water is called, has been called, and will continue to be called the Gulf of Mexico. Their editorial position, acknowledge the preferred U.S. name while using the established international one, is not defiance. It is accuracy applied to a global context.
They should
You've got to refer to people as
they should
birthing
adopt
people.
the Prince method. Just have a little symbol called the Gulf, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, which should now be called whatever the hell.
But there's a much broader.
The Gulf of whatever the hell he wants.
There's a much broader danger. Today, it's the.
There's 2 genders, and then Biden tells me that there's 73. What? I don't comply with that.
Yeah, but
The Biden
Biden
administration isn't
banning-
barring Fox News from covering press conferences.
Right, he's not going to ban you from
And Trump
coming
hasn't
to the
done
White
that
House
yet.
because
This
you
is
have a
what I mean
different
about
belief.
Brian.
For the last 2 days, though, the AP has been blocked from attending events that it's
People will not
attended for
comply with the
decades.
executive
No,
order.
I really
you
would
want the
rather you
president to do that?
not refer to me
To ban AP?
as hysterical for expressing an opinion. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. I don't do it to you.
Why do you think the AP won't just call it the Gulf of America? I mean,
That's
the
petty
president,
to
the
me.
president
Well,
does
let me
rename
just-
things. We rename what's the mountain, Denali,
Okay.
Mount McKinley. from time to
Let me
time.
read their explanation for why they are not doing it. Essentially, they are saying that Trump's order only carries authority within the United States. Mexico, as well as other countries and international bodies, do not have to recognize that name change. The Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for 400 years. As was said at the table, and the Associated Press is going to refer to it by its original name, while acknowledging that Trump has a new name that he would like to call it. They are an international organization. No one except Trump with a pen has said that it's the Gulf of America. It's a body of water that also has borders with another country, and it's been named that for 400 years.
I know, but we have a lawful process in this country for changing the name of it. The president went through it with the Secretary of the Interior, by the way. I mean, it
And
feels
it's
a
also
little
different. Can I
feels
just answer your Denali question? The Denali thing is actually different because that's a place that's in the United States proper. It exists in
But we
in
changed the name
this
of it.
country.
The point is we changed the name
we
of it.
have the ability
It
to
does
change
happen.
the name. It's
And
Mount
so-
McKinley. It's Mount McKinley.
But we also have the ability to change this body of water. I think, look, this smacks to me of a news organization looking for a way to pick a fight with Donald Trump over something that they don't need to pick a fight over.
Exactly.
A. B.
It's petty.
B. He is the president,
wait,
and there
wait,
is a
wait.
lawful process
But
that he
Scott,
did follow to do it.
The news
and so
organization
why
did
won't they
not
just
pick a
respect
fight with
that?
Donald Trump over this. Donald Trump picked a fight with the news organization.
No, they're not calling
over
it by the name.
No,
That's the
the
fight.
news organization can do whatever they want. If they want to call it the Gulf of South America, they can call it
But
that.
why would I
Donald
respect
Trump
a news
doesn't-
organization that
Yeah,
doesn't deal in reality?
But
You don't
actually
have
false
to.
But
information
Scott,
if to not
Scott,
call it what
they
it
can
is.
call it whatever they want because there's free speech in this country. Wouldn't
Sure.
you agree?
Yes, but that, in my opinion, if you're not willing to call something by the proper name based on the laws of the United States, that calls into question your judgment. And are you a
There are
news
no- by the
organization?
way,
or are you
here. It's an executive order,
but-
and the body of water is not
Okay.
named by the United States. It's named
Sure
by
it is.
global organizations that name global landmarks.
Would it
That's
be-
not,
I
mean-
it's not their
Scott.
law.
The photographer was still let in. That detail keeps surfacing because it keeps mattering. The president wanted his image captured. He wanted the visual record. He just did not want the independent words that come with an AP reporter in the room. That is not a press access policy. That is an attempt to separate the optics from the accountability, to get the pictures without the journalism. Anna Navarro's comparison to Latinx and birthing person was sharper than it might have seemed in the moment. The right spent years building an entire political identity around the idea that compelled speech is authoritarian, that demanding people use specific terms as a condition of participation in public life is exactly the kind of language policing that defines radical left overreach. And here is the Trump administration physically removing a news organization from the presidential office for declining to adopt its preferred terminology for an internationally named body of water. The principle that was sacred when the left applied pressure has evaporated entirely now that the right is applying it. Scott Jennings even acknowledged, briefly, before pivoting, that forcing terminology on people is dangerous. Then he helped defend doing exactly that. The Denali comparison that Jennings floated deserved the response it got. Denali is a mountain located entirely within the United States. Its naming is a domestic matter governed by domestic authority. The Gulf of Mexico shares borders with 2 other sovereign nations and is recognized internationally by a name that predates the United States by several centuries. These are not comparable situations. The panel corrected the record. Jennings moved on. The FCC story is where the stakes become genuinely historic. The Federal Communications Commission is now investigating NPR, PBS, NBC Universal, and Comcast. Not for any broadcast standards violation, not for any licensing issue, but for how they structure their internal diversity programs. Brian Stelter said it clearly. This has never happened before. Not under Democrats, not under Republicans. Not once in the agency's entire history has the FCC used its regulatory authority to pressure private corporations to change their internal HR practices. Navarro named the ideological contradiction that should have silenced every conservative on the panel. The Republican Party built its modern identity on the principle that Washington bureaucrats have no business telling private companies how to run their internal operations. Small government, free market, deregulation, less intervention, not more. And here's the Trump FCC doing precisely the opposite, using a federal regulatory agency to audit corporate diversity programs that have nothing to do with broadcast standards and everything to do with political preferences. When Jennings was pressed directly, should the FCC be telling Comcast and NBC Universal how to govern their internal corporate practices? He said he truly did not know what the right answer was. He called it a more muscular approach. Muscular. The adjective of a man who has run out of arguments and reached for a word that sounds strong without meaning anything specific.
Donald Trump had an executive order, but the Associated Press is not bound by it.
Scott, what if the Biden
that's their
administration did this so similarly? What if the Biden administration was barring, say, a Fox News because they weren't going along with an executive order where Biden said you must refer to every single transgender person as they, them, or whatever it was?
I think if you
would you be supportive of that then? I think it gets really dangerous when we start forcing terminology on people. I didn't like it when the left did it with things like Latinx, birthing person, you name it.
These things are not in any way, shape, or form related.
They're remotely.
I mean, are we okay with the government telling corporations how they can govern themselves?
There's nothing less conservative than that, and less about Republican value than that. I mean, Republicans used to be for small government and for the private sector governing themselves, and we are for less regulation, supposedly. And so I see it so opposed to all of the things that we grew up believing.
So you're saying we should do away with the FCC?
No, I'm not saying we should do away with the FCC.
Is that the conservative view?
I'm saying that no government agency should be
stop this conversation right there, because I think it's so.
I mean, we're in the mood right now.
Scott, it's in such bad faith for you to take what she just said and then say you want to get rid of the FCC.
No, she said we should have less regulation. This is a regulatory agency. What are they supposed to do?
That's not at all what she said.
She said they shouldn't be so active.
What's your answer to her question about whether the FCC should be dabbling in Comcast and NBC Universal and saying, this is how you need to run your corporation?
Well, I mean, I think these public broadcasters, I mean, they do have these licenses because it's the public airwaves, and that's the reason the regulatory agency exists. So, you know, that's the way it's always worked. I truthfully don't know what the right answer here is. This is a more muscular look at these. Trump, obviously, and his people feel that some of these people have run amok with their with the privilege of having these licenses. So I don't know what the answer is.
I love when you say that. All I know right now, you said slippery slope earlier, we are slipping. Like, we're 3 weeks in and we are slipping.
Everything is fine.
Here's what should stay with you. Both stories on this panel, the AP ban and the FCC targeting, operate on the same underlying logic. Comply or face consequences. Use the preferred name or lose your access. Run your company the way we prefer or risk your license. That is not governance. That is coercion, dressed in the language of executive authority and regulatory oversight, but coercion nonetheless. The First Amendment does not only protect speech from direct government censorship, it protects the conditions that make independent journalism possible, including the ability to report from the Oval Office without adopting the president's preferred branding for international bodies of water, and the principle that government should stay out of private corporate governance, a principle the right has invoked for decades, does not disappear because the administration finds certain corporate practices politically inconvenient. Brian Stelter said the AP will win in court. He said it with the confidence of someone who has seen this legal ground before. CNN won in 2018 when a press credential was revoked under similar circumstances. The courts will speak on this. They tend to when the First Amendment is this clearly in play. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the AP should have simply adopted the new name to maintain access, or was holding the line the right call? And what do you make of a conservative movement defending FCC interference in private corporate governance? Subscribe to the debate, Chaz. We will keep pulling these threads until the pattern is impossible to dismiss.